Hello, everyone. TeamEXAngus here. Today, I'm going to be walking through creating a plugin for SCP Secret Lab using Exiled. So, I would recommend that you actually know how to program, because that's what we're doing. It's kind of difficult to jump in the deep end, but you don't need to. You can teach yourself through doing this, which is what I've seen some people try to do. And in the description is gonna be the link for the Exiled Discord server, where there's a support channel for this stuff. And as far as making the plugin goes, we're gonna use Visual Studio just because that's what I have. You don't have to use it, but it'll probably be easy to follow along if you are using it. So if you have Visual Studio open, it's going to look something like this. We can create a new project. Now, what you want to find is a class library for the .NET framework. So this one here. You can name this, call this whatever you want. It obviously depends on what your plugin is going to do. We're going to create this. And the difference between these two is just, I like to have Exiled 2 on the end. I don't really know why. It's just something I do. Something I picked up from the tutorial I watched, which is, of course, optional. Then you can click Create. And drag this over here. So you're gonna open up. This is gonna look something like this. So we want to actually go over to references. Going to add references. Now to add references, you're going to need to download it from the releases section of the Exiled GitHub. So you can scroll down to the most recent one and expand assets, and you're going to want to download exiled.tar.gz. And once that's downloaded, you can open it. So once you've opened it, you can extract all of the folders within it, the folder within it. And this is just full of .dlls, which are what we need to add as our references. So in Visual Studio, in your add references, you want to click Browse. You just want to go to your folder wherever it is. Mine's in Downloads, and select each of these, all of those .dll files. And we're actually going to create a new file first. So we're going to right click on this top bit here, click add a new item. We're going to call this one config and create that. So we need a public sealed class config iConfig. We're going to do the semicolon iConfig. And this just tells the computer, don't forget you need this up here. This bit here next to it just tells the compiler that we're making a config file for Exiled plugin. The first thing you're going to need is a public bool is enabled and set equals true. And this bit here it's whether or not your plugin is enabled. You don't need to do any code to check for this. If the server owner sets this to false in their server config, it's just Exiled isn't even going to load your plugin. Now, what we're going to be making, I know the configs. I'm copying off one I've already written here. So these are the ones we're going to use for our plugin that's going to add kill messages when you kill someone. We're going to add a public short kill message time get set equals 5 and public string kill this here. Alright, so this is going to be the config for my plugin. If you're following along trying to make the same one as me, obviously yours is going to be the same, but if you're making a different plugin, you're going to have your own thing. So now that we've got this, we can just right-click and rename this one, because we don't need it to be called class 1. I'm going to call mine Exiled plugin and rename this. So now we're in here, we see that this bit has been renamed. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this semicolon and we're going to do plugin, not autocorrect, config. Now we need to import up here, we need to include using Exiled API features, because otherwise the computer doesn't know what you want it to do. But all this does is it says that your Exiled plugin here, it's a plugin, and this tells it where the config file is. So now in your class here, we're going to include a private static example Exiled plugin. We're going to name this singleton. We're going to instantiate it as a new Exiled plugin. Now we can do public static Exiled plugin, call this one instance, and it just points towards singleton here. All this does is this is our plugin, it's storing it, and this is private, and now this public one here just allows other pieces of our code to access our instance of our plugin. Now next we need public override version, and we're going to set this to a new version, and this is your plugin's version. Since this is the very start, we're going to do 1.0.0 and public override version, then do our required Exiled version, which is just the version of Exiled that you need to run your plugin. I'm using Exiled 2.10, but if you're using the same as me, it's going to be the same. If you're using different to me, it'll be different. Now down here, we just need to include public override on enabled, public override on disabled. For now, we're just going to leave these because we don't need to change anything yet. But all this is code that runs when Exiled starts your plugin, and this is code that runs when Exiled stops your plugin. So now we want to add a folder. You don't need to add a folder, but it helps for organization. We're going to call this one handlers. Now into handlers, we are going to add dying, because it's useful to have helpful names. I'm just going to zing exile.events.event.args. We're add a new function, public void on dying event args ev. Now I can add some code to this one. Now, since the point of my plugin is to add kill messages whenever you kill someone, the first thing we obviously want to do is make sure the killer doesn't have any message on their screen at the moment. So we're going to do ev.killer.clear broadcasts. There we go. And that'll remove any broadcasts from their screen. Now we are going to get the config value from our config Exiled plugin instance dot config dot kill message time. We can do the same for the actual kill message. So now we don't have to type out this long thing in the actual code down below. We're just gonna store it for our own use. You obviously don't need to do that. You could just put this long bit in the bits we're about to type, but it helps for neatness. Now, actually, the first thing we're going to want to do is, my config at least, it has these like template bits in them. So the first thing we're going to do is replace those. So kill message equals kill message dot replace what we're going to replace is player with ev.target.nickname. And this will replace, in our kill message, it'll replace player between these two squiggly brackets with the nickname of the player who got killed. And we can do the same for role. We replace this with ev.target.role.toString. As this turns what their role is to a string of text, which we can actually insert into it. And now we just want to ev.killer.broadcast. Kill message time, kill message. So this will just, on the person who does the killings screen, it'll put up a text on the top of the screen, which will last for kill message time, which is our config value, and it'll say our kill message with these bits here replaced. So next step is to go back into our main class of our plugin and actually sort of install that feature into our server. So the first thing we're going to do using player handler equals exiled.events.handlers.player. And this just sort of renames with our code this long bit to player handler. Because otherwise, if we wanted to access this bit here, we'd have to type out the whole thing. But we can shorten it. Now we need a private handlers.dying. We can just name this dying. And in our onEnabled function, we're going to set dying equals new handlers.dying. So this line here says that we're going to assign a handlers.dying to our dying variable. This actually does the assignment. And down here, player handler.dying. We're going to do plus equals dying.onDying. All this does is adds our function here on dying to the code that should get run when a player dies. And in our onDisabled function, we're sort of going to do the reverse. Player handler dot dying minus equals dying dot onDying. This just removes our function from the stuff that gets done when a player dies. Now we can set dying to the null value, just so it's not taking up extra space on the computer, basically. And now this will be a working plugin at the moment. We've got everything we need here for it to work. So if you want to put it on your server, you can just go up to the top to build and press build solution. And once this down here has all finished, we can right click on our solution and open folder in File Explorer. We're going to enter here into the bin folder in debug, and here's our DLL. So you can just drag this into your plugins folder like you could any plugin that you downloaded from GitHub, and that's how you could test it. So yeah, that's it for our simple plugin. Obviously there's a lot more that you can go into, but for the sake of just the very basics, this is what you'll need. And if you want to sort of explore more options, obviously join the Exiled Discord server, go to their Dev Talk channel, because I'm going to be there a lot of the time. I have no life. And there are like the actual Exiled devs there helping people out. So have fun making your plugins.